Hello, everyone. You're listening to Truth Cat Radio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is 8 o'clock p.m., actually 8:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. My name is Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who's tuning in here today. I know that we're starting to have a bit of some additional listenership today through another station. We'd like to welcome all the new listeners, and we're definitely happy to be expanding and advancing the exposure of Truth Cat Radio in general. I do have a few very interesting guests I have lined up for this coming month here. I am excited to hear what what they're going to have to say. It has been a few weeks now where I've been doing some shows without guests. We had a little bit of a lag, it seems, in booking some of our people. I don't know if it was just the time of year, mid-spring here or what. But we are still fully incorporating the guests, because their perspectives are definitely a lot of what a lot of you I know tune in for. I do want to take a moment just to reach out and mention that we are completely listener supported here at Truth Cat Radio. We are not accepting any sort of corporate advertising, and we're not monetizing. All the archives here are free. So if you can, please support our station. We have a support page on our station website. That's URL www.truthcatradio.com. And PayPal is accepted. A lot of people like the convenient, secure means PayPal provides. So please, any little bit could help. Anything you have lying around that you could spare, that you don't need for the month. A lot of times just those small donations, help put us over the top to make sure all our bills are taken care of, to keep everything running here for you. And we do have a lot of great guests and a lot of excellent information that they're sharing, but we can't keep that coming to you, and completely uncensored from the corporate media. We're completely independent here, but not without your support, the support of our listeners. So we do need to remind you all of that you're the reason why we're around and why we'll be able to stick around. So yes, please help out. And if you could also on our Facebook page, please like the page and share it. We get most of our promotion for the station done on Facebook. I know I haven't really mentioned too much about the Beyond the Matrix page. We have a Beyond the Matrix page as well. So please, like those and share those and join our group as well. Truth Cats has a great news group. A lot of people have been contributing to and sharing a lot of information through. Even though these social media networks can have a lot of algorithms that work against independent spread of information, we should still use all of these mechanisms to fight the system and any tyranny of information suppression. And if any of you would like to call in tonight, I would like to open up the phones. Actually, during the first hour here, even would like to hear some of the perspectives of some of our listeners out there in the Truth Cat Radio community. So if you wouldn't be too shy, if you think you might want to at least say hello or bring up a topic to get a perspective on, please. The number will be 714-598-3125. That number again, 714-598-3125. please be sure to just turn off the radio when you call on in or your computer speakers, and don't say anything when in the call in queue. I'll just verbally invite you to speak by your area code. And once again, please help out and support the station with whatever you can. Now then, tonight I really did want to recap that since we are expanding a bit of our listenership here. I know for a lot of people this will probably be a first listening. I'm not even sure how much, a lot of these new listeners have heard any of the other shows on TruthCat. And I know the Stephen D. Kelly show has been experiencing the simulcast for a bit of time now, but just a lot of the topics we covered recently, I do think are still rather pertinent. And actually a lot of our guests, we're going to try to have some repeat guests coming on in the near future that especially ones I think had information that we could really dig deeper in, that we only began to scratch the surface of what is there. I did want to bring up again, though, this whole media cover-up, really, that we're getting in the corporate media regarding the Donald Trump wiretap claims. They're trying to link it to Russia now in the corporate media. So I don't know. They're trying to say that there isn't any certainty that he was being spied on, but that we are sure he was colluding with Russia. And, this is just ridiculous Russia bashing that we've confirmed there's been a lot of polling, and most Americans are not buying, this whole attempt to resurge McCarthyism. Most people are not, most Americans today in the current era are not buying this Russia bashing, this propaganda from the corporate media that we're supposed to believe that Russia's the great enemy again, and that they want to conquer and destroy freedom, capitalism, and the like. Nothing could be further from the truth in current day Russia. And this is clearly about economic interests and war agendas related to economic interests, and the supremacy of the U.S. dollar internationally is, a lot of this is where a lot of this Russia bashing is really coming from. I mean, we have Russia and we have China now merging. They're going to be a strong competitor with the U.S. dollar-based international trade market. I know they're competing with the SWIFT system now, and I know they're going to be using a gold basis for their transactions, and that's something obviously that over here in America we certainly they'll certainly be up in arms with down at the Federal Reserve. I wouldn't act like they speak for us, because our money loaned to us created as a debt loaned to us at interest from a private organization is clearly unconstitutional and never should have been the case. But nonetheless, this economic is really the root of this Russia bashing. So we're hearing the corporate media spin this Donald Trump wiretap and spying in whatever way suits the current soundbite for the day. If it's about trying to link him to Russia, it'll imply that they know what he was doing. If it's about his bringing up and looking into this whole investigation further, the wiretapping in general, the evidence for it, this is something that of course they want to all out deny. But we have seen at this point now from a lot of documents that have been released from both WikiLeaks and other sources, regarding the hacking tools that the government has been purchasing, which specifically leads a trail of another government's technology. So basically you can spy on a country with the technology equipment of, some country other than your own, so that it doesn't look like you were doing the spying, but some third party country, due to the telltale signs of that technology equipment. The signature, unique trademarks of that country's spy software, if you will. And so, this has been a regular thing, so the U.S. would be buying, various types of sets of spy technology to implicate various third-party countries when they're doing their spying, so it doesn't look like, American technology was doing the spying, but, fill in the blanks country's technology was doing the spying. And so this has all been clearly, though, discrediting any claims to, Russian spying, Russian hacking. It's interesting we're hearing all these claims of Russian hacking into the elections, of course, because anyone who's actually been keeping track of any of the investigations into the election results, polls, just the cases of fraud that have been coming up and confirmed, all have been favoring Hillary Clinton. So every time so far in any state, whether you're talking about the Democratic nominee or whether you're talking about, the final results, just every step of the way, basically, at any points where we have been detecting fraud, as far as just sometimes voter machines having numbers in them before the voting begins, it's just like rigged from the start of the day and jacked in Hillary's favor. Or we'll have a lot of illegal or dead voters, like illegal meaning illegal immigrant, they're not legally able to cast a vote. Of course, we had a lot of encouraging of that, even from Obama's mouth himself, trying to suggest to all these voters who are illegal immigrants, go to the polling place, we're not going to have any immigration around there. Please vote, to make your mark in American systems. And, this is preposterous. A lot of the forms for all of the benefits the immigrants were getting were coming with registrations for the election. So, there was a ridiculous amount of encouraging of the illegal immigrants on the part of the Democratic Party for their votes. They were totally marketing that. But yes, we've had a lot of complaints really from Bernie supporters, for that matter. He's brought up a lot of evidence that Hillary completely stole the Democratic nomination from Bernie. And then once it passed to the final, face-off, really, with Trump and Hillary, everything at every step of the way favored Hillary, but they're still out there, bringing up this Russia hacking the elections in cahoots with Trump. And basically, it's gotten to a point where the corporate media doesn't expect anything to be cross-referenced or double-checked, and they may have to retract later at, page 127, down at the bottom under the ads for, various supplemental products. But, that headline that first mentions the false information is what will stick in people's minds. This is the strategy the corporate media has resorted to, is just playing to the short attention span of a lot of the modern technology consumers. And it is it is too easy, really, for a lot of things to get left unnoticed. But that there are so many inconsistencies now for anyone who pays attention to the media. The corporate media has just become a complete joke. It really is like a mockery and a parody of itself, I mean, if you actually put any effort, I mean, in, of course, and cross-reference information with other sources, known credible sources, and we have a lot of people out there, of course, don't do that. So, I mean, they'll hear something like these claims. And now, I mean, we have, Donald Trump getting, called out in every way possible by the corporate media. It's fascinating the level to which this administration is being attacked by the corporate media. But we're supposed to believe, we're supposed to believe that he's the bad president or something. Now, I know a lot of people may disagree with some of what his administration has done or not done so far. Well, he's had opposition everywhere, and he's been too nice to the insiders in both the executive branch and in Congress who've been against him. I mean, just childish behavior out there, and he's being too nice to these people. I mean, businessman is coming from a world where you make compromises, and you try to find some middle ground where everyone can be happy. Well, a lot of these childish politicians are just that. They're childish. They've had their way, have come from privileged backgrounds. I mean, they went to just high-end schools and were given, jobs through connections of family and friends their whole life. And, these are people who don't know how to play by the rules. And they're certainly not people who have respect for anyone but themselves. It's the curse of politics, is that it draws to it the very people who should never be given the seat of power. Unfortunately, we do have that problem where, Trump is expecting these people to act like honorable businessmen, and politicians generally act like anything but. So, I mean, people are being a bit hard on him. Yet he really has to start being more offensive rather than defensive, and just realize that he has to replace a lot of these people who are just going to stop him at every turn to make any changes for this country. We've had the evidence that he's presented get totally discredited by the corporate media on no basis whatsoever. But I mean, he has been building an investigation regarding the evidence and all of the requests even that the Obama administration had made for the Trump wiretaps. I went into this a bit more in detail, but I mean, there were a few attempts. I mean, first, we had an initial, well, I mean, it was based on a fake website when they originally did get permission. So, I mean, originally, Obama tried to get the FBI to bug Donald Trump. And the FBI said, no, that's too Watergate for our tastes. And Obama then went to the FISA court, asked for a warrant that included the name Donald Trump, and even the FISA court, which rubber stamps 99.8% of all warrant requests, said, no, that's too Watergate for us. Even. So I mean, even trying to use the foreign court, focusing on foreign intelligence, and that fell flat on its face. 3 days after that, first FISA court warrant to wiretap Donald Trump. 3 days after that was denied, a fake Trump website was set up. And that was called TrumpEmail.com. Now, they were copying the Trump Organization brand, and it looked a lot like it was part of the Trump campaign. And of course, anyone who wanted to use this to implicate or to justify the surveillance wasn't going to question it, of course. So, we had someone initially create this and then propagate it on to the court. Now, it was run by a lady named Emily McMullen, and she turns out to be the sister of the ex-CIA never-Trumper, Evan McMullen. So this is one of these people who's just, against anything Trump does, basically. And he's going to, one of these people who's going to just stonewall any way possible at any turn. What was posted on this website was cited in the second request for the FISA wiretapping warrant. Now, Loretta Lynch signed off on this warrant application to the FISA court, which was then used to spy on Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump's name was not actually on it. So Loretta Lynch knowingly submitted false information to the FISA court. And I see, here's the link between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And so this was all manufactured and fake. But this was what led up to the wiretap. So, I mean, any denials of Trump being wiretapped is really ridiculous. I mean, this is all on record of the Obama administration, submitting these requests and the lengths they had to go to try to create a false pretense for all of this. It was just, so it's just laughable, at the amount of denial that is coming out of that. But at the same time, we're getting all of these claims of the corporate media trying to, not only demonize Russia as much as they have been, but linking Trump to Russia. And, saying that, of course, Russia was hacking the elections. It's just really ridiculous. Now, most recently, we have this, interesting turn of events here. It seems that although, things are proceeding, Trump really should not have left a lot of these people in the positions that he has, because, it doesn't seem like things are going to proceed, with any, really accomplishing much of anything. A lot of the former White House staffers and officials had been coming forward, stating that they were ordered by Obama to find some way to work against the incoming Trump administration, just to leave stuff there that were going to cause him problems. We now know a lot of these staff holdovers are the sources of a lot of those leaks that have been getting out from inside the White House. This one woman just came out in the last day or so. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but they've just identified one White House staffer, woman who was the source of a large amount of these leaks to the corporate media. So anything they could possibly do to use against Trump, regarding any policy plans in past months here, had been coming from her, and it had been common knowledge around the White House from staffers that anything that is mentioned in her presence will get out to the corporate media. So a lot of people weren't even surprised when this woman was finally fingered or found out, as it were. They were rather gentle with her. She still does have a government job. They didn't make her jobless, but she has a job that's now outside of the actual Trump administration in Washington, is how it has been described. But we might see a lot less of these leaks that were empowering the corporate media to bash Trump. Now that she's been removed, it should have a significant. And I apologize if someone wants to email me. I can get for you later the woman's name. Just having trouble finding the site I was reading it from right now. But a lot of these staff holdovers are the sources of a lot of these leaks that have been getting out from inside the White House. Word is, though, that Trump has brought in a whole new group of lawyers as far as looking into the wiretapping investigation. And, even the head of DHS, Kelly, is convinced that Trump must have rather convincing evidence. And the Intelligence Committee is going to be investigating. The Department of Justice is going to be investigating. So, that does look promising. But as I said, just a lot of these Obama administration holdovers have been stonewalling a lot of progress. And in this investigation, I can see it being no different if he doesn't really clean house a little more than he has been. I mean, we talk about draining the swamp. Trump, he always was talking about draining the swamp, But, he's being, as I said, so polite coming from the world of business and so compromising to a lot of these politicians. He doesn't understand that, they might act like a friend to his face, but they're completely against him when it comes down to, any actions that are actually going to be made. I mean, in Congress, like I said, we've seen so much childishness lately. These people, it doesn't really matter what the issue is or where they stood on the issue in the past. If now Trump is supporting it, they're against it. And, end of story. It's just, I mean, it's just like this good old boys club, this clique, that is all trying to gang up against Trump. And yet, we're supposed to believe that he's the bad guy. But no, most Americans out there, I think, showed that wasn't the case. And the results at the election polls this past election, they do not believe that Trump is the bad guy. And, this shamelessness from the corporate media that's gone on since he's taken office is not going to change things one bit. And likewise, the majority of Americans are not buying the whole demonization of Russia and Russia bashing. And I'm very glad for that. There's too much propaganda regarding these war agendas that we buy into so easily. And we certainly don't need the average American believing that Russia is our enemy. That's not going to work for our benefit, the benefit of the citizens. It could help out Congress and the bankers with their agendas. Well, we'd be better off if they had a few bad years, basically, if not worse. A lot of this swamp that Trump speaks of is really something that you can't drain without bringing in a lot of people who are not career politicians. This is what I think a lot of it really comes down to. He still has a lot of establishment that he's allowing to. I call a lot of them Obama holdovers, but even a lot of people who are not necessarily Democratic are so against Trump. It's like they've been giving marching orders from, a higher authority. Democrats and Republicans of the establishment, band together against Trump. And if you don't do this, it will be your career. Basically, I don't know. It seems like just an unspoken rule among a lot of these politicians. I'm not sure if they're actually getting any sort of direction regarding a lot of these rather extreme and childish stances against the president, but it does remind me a lot of just a lot of similar, just extreme threatening sort of behaviors, such as when we heard so many threats regarding the mentioning of Gaza, like in Hollywood especially. We were hearing a lot of reports of this a couple years back, especially when the Israelis were doing a particularly large amount of bombing to the Gaza Strip. But all the people in Hollywood were being told, dude, don't mention Gaza, or it could be your Hollywood career. And it seems like a lot of these people now, these establishment career politicians are, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, basically you have to be against Trump or you're not going to be around long. A lot of people are afraid that, they just don't like the fact that he's not bought and paid for. A lot of these career politicians are very easily blackmailable, if you will. They have a lot of dirt on them, and that's why they're in the positions they're in. Well, this is someone who is outside of that, and we have to understand, petty differences aside, no one's going to agree with the views 100% of any leader. but he's against the establishment, as is Putin. Because anyone who is going to say that globalism and GMOs and vaccines are good, and Putin being for nationalism and self-sustaining cohesiveness of a country and against all those things is bad, is insane. We do have a bit of the culture, especially, a lot of the the younger, more hipster crowd who tend to, by very nature, lean more democratically as growing up, for the seemingly liberal aspects, which has really completely changed, in the generation I've been growing up in. I mean, it's really twisted and upside down on its head. And it's really a totalitarianism behind a lot of the democratic far left agendas these days. I mean, it's nothing like the original just goal. When you think of what it means, just the definition of liberalism in general, for example, and yeah, I mean, we've had a complete 180 degree, pretty much, twist of things. We're like, everything is kind of the opposite of what we were brought up to believe. But yeah, we do have a lot of people who think as they grow up, in the school system, they're taught globalism is a good thing. They're taught it that you're hateful and racist if you care about nationalism. That globalism is the only way to escape that, and to evolve. This multicultural agenda, for example. It's really about destroying the cohesiveness of nation states and losing their identity, so that they're more easily manipulable by a one world totalitarian government. I mean, I think that, only a few years ago, more people would laugh when you bring up, globalism, totalitarian, New World Order, these types of things, who today are not laughing. They're taking it a lot more seriously, a much larger percentage of the population, whereas in the past we would just have, more extreme elements in the independent media, who, nonetheless have a lot of important information and good things to share. People such as, David Icke or Alex Jones or someone, who would mention a lot of these things far before anyone else was. And everyone has their flaws. And Alex Jones certainly turns on a lot of people to something other than the corporate media, and to not believe we're all being lied to. But he certainly has his masters and his agendas that he doesn't tamper with. I mean, he's somewhere in limbo at this point, between the independent media and something that's not quite independent, but certainly still, I think is not someone to focus on. Certainly not part of the establishment that we have such a problem with. Some people feel, though, of course, a lot of these most popular independent media outlets, they limit the perception, if you will, to keep too many people from getting into independent media culture, if you will. I mean, if they seem a little too extreme and a little too, out there, maybe even a little nutty at times, that, say some things that are discreditable at times, mention some things at times that might be covering for certain groups or organizations. And then this is a perfect mechanism, of course, for what a lot of people like to call a gatekeeper. I wouldn't quite call Alex Jones a gatekeeper, but like I said, I would say he's been compromised beyond the point of being able to still say he's independent media, and we could just leave it at that. But yeah, he does a great service. Yeah, people like David Icke out there have for many years been pointing out this concern. But I mean, it's for anyone who has done the research. This has all been out there. I mean, if you go back to William Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse, he mentions so much. He details from a lot of the documents that he's uncovered so many plans for this globalist agenda, and this has been decades and decades before you heard Alex Jones or someone bringing it up as a concept. So I mean, yeah, this has been going on for a long time, and it is significant that it was brought into the public eye by George Herbert Walker Bush when he chose in that one well-known speech, to reference the New World Order. That was actually pretty big. That's kind of that amount of outing publicly and trying to present a positive face to it, to this globalism. We saw that. I thought it was very well known from that speech. I mean, that was a sample bite, I know, in a well-known industrial song. Actually, a local band to my hometown here of Chicago, the band Ministry, has a great song, NWO, with a sampling George Herbert Walker Bush, referencing the New World Order. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Even a lot of these, people such as artists and musicians, are quite aware of a lot of the significance, of a lot of these hidden hands and seemingly innocent references. But yeah, they were definitely on top of their game to make such a reference, I'd say, because it was quite significant, and yeah, ever since then we've had this gradual push toward just making it more commonplace and more just some benign future, that we could look forward to, where there's a single government that will be just completely benign in the best interests of all humanity, and anything but a tyrant. And of course, this is the attitude we're supposed to adhere to. A lot of the colleges now, and even younger than that, high school level, even grade school level, they're being indoctrinated though with this attitude of globalism being this benign thing you need to embrace, and anyone who's against globalism, you need to shun and just take out of power. Ultimately, because they just have no place in a civilized, progressing society. This is what they're being taught, and yeah, we really need to take back the education of our children. I myself, speaking as someone who's not a parent, but for all those out there who have decided to be parents in this generation, you really need to be a larger influence over educating, teaching, raising your children, bringing them up, then the state, then the school, because it's all too hot an agenda in this generation, in this era, for the state to try to slowly take that role away from the parent so that they can have a more efficient worker bee for the next generation to serve the state in the most productive way possible, without any objection, question. It's just complete obedience. We see a push toward a cult mentality that the college campuses are trying to push upon the youth, and it's under this disguise of political correctness and multiculturalism, diversity, globalism. All of these terms are mechanisms for control of how you think, how you perceive things, how you view things. And yeah, you've seen the amount of so-called free speech zones on campuses. I mean, it's just trying to make you think that otherwise you don't have a right to say what you want. You see all these ridiculous objections to any and all things American, even on college campuses now, and sympathy for immigrants. I mean, it's really ridiculous where it's almost cartoon-esque how much the far left has been going toward attacking America, not just Trump, but America itself. Anything related to the flag, for example, is under attack. We've had so many places where statues and flags on various, I think even like license plates and things like that. But yeah, a lot of monuments with well-known figures, being removed. People are saying, oh, this person was, against, progressive future, all the way he lived, contrasted with that. Either he was racist or he was, for certain entities that, they're trying to take away a lot of the past of this country, it seems, and a lot of the heritage and culture. I'd like to replace a lot of the icons that we've grown up with, forefathers and a lot of forerunners, to a lot of the innovations of early America here. They are going against are just not for the, the kind of agenda that these people would like. We're seeing overseas just a lot of insanity with this agenda as well. I mean, Sweden and Denmark are hotspots for this, have been for quite a few years. It's been a testing ground for a lot of these extreme sort of programming and conditioning tactics, basically. The media is utilized, and it's the culture through shows and films, but like the campuses, the schools are probably the single biggest threat to sane living these days. It's sad to say, but it really is the case. I mean, these people are leaving the universities all ready to be social justice warriors and have no skills to actually get jobs out there or to sustain or to do any of the things and we have in our society. But no, they're ready to be fully schooled in being a social justice warrior, fighting against racism, against nationalism, for a globalist, multicultural, one world, totalitarian government. And yeah, we really need to, I think, encourage the parents, therefore, of this next generation. The current era here, the young parents, that to really, find time, to make sure that you are a bigger influence in your child's life than the daycare, than the grade school, than the preschool, high school, college, all of it. I mean, as time goes on, a child has to find their own way more and more. But, the fundamental beginnings, especially, are very fragile in the way they can get corrupted. And we're seeing younger and younger children indoctrinated with so many attitudes that really, they shouldn't even be bothered with at such an age. Some of them are really not even very pleasant to talk about. And, there's a small percentage community out there who will attack and criticize, when I bring up such things. But I mean, it's really something that has to stop, especially when it comes to the schools, the young children, and, just filling their heads with attitudes about gender identity. These children are like in preschool or kindergarten, first grade. They're being taught, about how, you might not want to be the gender you are. You might identify with a different gender, and you might want to start thinking about that now. And you might want to try experimenting more with, or in a lot of schools are being forced to play during playtime, and a lot of the activities more traditional to the opposite gender. I mean, it's one thing to allow someone freedom to do something if they think of it on their own, but to pound them over the head trying to entice them into a certain alternative direction, which actually goes against their nature. Now that is what we're seeing now, and it's really ridiculous. But I mean at every level, the whole scope of the social justice warrior, every topic you could imagine, our children are being bombarded at every level of school. And yeah, they need to go into these environments knowing what they're willing to take out of it and what they're not, and what they've been raised from their family and friends is reality, and what is going to be propaganda out there, and why it is going to be propaganda. Without understanding the why, a lot of these young people have trouble understanding, of course, how so many lies could exist. So you really need to cover the why of a lot of this as well. I think to make sure that people are not so easily impressionable with agendas that go really against reality, in trying to please a corporate unistate or omnistate of the globalist dream. We really can't let that happen, and it does look like it's not very likely. I mean, we have seen more and more push against globalism. I really wanted to touch base with Graeme, who was on before my show. I've been meaning to. Perhaps next week I can, as I wanted to ask him what he's heard from various fellow Scottish. Well, he's in Scotland there, of course, and they. Well, I know they're working on the process now to have another referendum, and well, I mean, it's really kind of absurd. I mean, their independence referendum, they're trying to link it with being with the EU as the consequence. Those established power junkies, if you will, are trying to suggest, okay, well, Scotland, you're planning on leaving and not being part of United Kingdom, but the alternative then should, of course, naturally be to join the EU. Well, that nothing could be further from logic. Obviously, I mean, seeking independence is what is being sought here, and to not be weighed down by this massive collective guilt of debt. Ultimately a debt that is due to the fiat currencies, but is an entire EU. Well, it's a shifting debt, really. It ensures that no country can be successful, basically. And we've seen that as being one of the prime reasons why a lot of countries have been working their way out of the EU currently. It really is crumbling. The entire globalist dream does seem to be crumbling. So I do think things are promising for the future, because people are already, they're not having it. They've had enough of this. We might have propaganda in some of these countries for a while longer regarding how evil nationalism is, but enough are already waking up. The others will catch on soon enough that, hey, I think we can see what the real enemy of the people is. And it's not nation states or the nationalism which makes them possible. It's clearly the globalism. Scotland has recently discovered vast deposit of oil within their boundaries, basically, off the coast region. I forget exactly where was stated. So I'm not sure which coast, which portion of the coast of Scotland this is near. But I did want to ask Graeme what he's heard on the developing information about this so far, because basically it looks like Scotland is going to be a far more well off. I forget the estimated amount of barrels, but it looks like, yeah, Scotland is going to be in the money. Basically with all this oil that they've detected now. Yeah, they're going to be doing potentially a lot better, and it's perfect timing, therefore, to be independent from the UK and not be in the EU. And so, of course, this is the last thing that the EU would want, that the UK would want. So, I mean, yeah, they're having this, there's a lot of wet work that they're trying to accomplish going into this second referendum, just hoping to, fix the results in favor of the establishment, basically. And well, we can only hope that doesn't occur. But once you get to a level that high, it becomes more and more difficult to topple the system. I mean, here in America, we've actually just had a very surprising announcement. Just looking at the time here, folks. Actually, I might save that for after the break here. Yeah, it looks like we have a couple minutes to our break here. So I just wanted to just mention that once again, this is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. And it's this TruthCat Radio at truthcatradio.com. And we will be taking a 5-minute intermission in just about two minutes or so here. So I will, I guess, take a break now. And I did want to once again mention that we are completely listener supported. If you go to our support page, we can accept donations with PayPal. It's a great, secure way to help us out. And since we don't do any sort of corporate advertising, we don't monetize whatsoever, we are completely listener supported, and that would be a great help if you have anything lying around you might be able to spare this week, this month. Please do just throw us a little something just to help keep everything running here. We just added about I don't know, how many hosts to the station? I don't know where Steven is, but yeah, it was quite a few people. We just added on. A couple of the shows are still awaiting their debut. I know next week we have a debut of one that's not started yet. But please check out and support all of our shows that we're adding here. It does help a lot with just getting the amount of people to spread the word. It's exponential, through listening, through sharing on Facebook, which is our primary mode of promotion. I will mention again. So yeah, please, if you could, on Facebook, like our both TruthCat Radio and Beyond the Matrix pages and the TruthCats news group. And we also do have a TruthCat page, TruthCat Radio, and then TruthCat, and then TruthCats group. And please check out the other pages for the other shows. I'm sure these new shows will be adding pages if they don't already have them up. And we are going to be having an intermission here in a moment. But Mondays we have The Invisible Gardener with Andy Lopez, which is going to be starting. And that's 6 p.m., followed by Shima with Metaphysics and More. And then Joan Hangarter, and that's Angel Essence at 10 p.m. Monday.
You thought I wasn't going to come in here. I'm here.
No.
It's time now. It's just now time.
All right. Maybe my clock's a little early on my computer here, but
Must be, because I got 55 right now. Actually, we just hit 56. All right. Let me do this for you. Okay, first of all, welcome to Truth Cat Radio. And if you are listening from Wolf Spirit Radio, we want to say hi. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have you here. And again, if you would like to join us, the phone number is 714-598-3125. And of course, if you need to join us via Skype, connect to Stephen D Kelly, Kelley. Make sure you say that you want to join the show. All right. And of course, my show will be up immediately after Richard's show. I think he might have said something about that. But yeah, it's tonight's going to be talking about Snowflakes of Death. Doesn't that sound like a good title? Snowflakes of Death. Very dramatic. But we have lots of exciting shows. We got a good show coming on tomorrow. Well, let's see, at 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday. That's Greg Downey and Attracting Miracles. And when we come back on Monday, as he said, we're going to have another brand new show starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is called Invisible Gardener. And the host of that show is Andy Lopez. And we're very excited to have him with us. And right after Andy comes Shima Moore with her show, Shima, Metaphysics and More. And after Shima at 10 p.m. Eastern is Joan Hangarter, a.k.a. Joan of Angels, and her show is Angel Essence. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Happy Mind, Happy Life with Sheila Willis. 8 p.m. Daryl Nichols with The Daryl Show. And at 10 p.m. is Dave Robbins with Mystic Freedom. Wednesdays, we start at 8 with Mars Madness and Mars Theron. At 10 p.m. is Freedom of Choice with Terry Joyce. We have a really great show on Thursday that we had today. It was only the second show. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's broadcast live from Donbass, or the city of Donetsk, which of course is a war zone. So if you want to get the latest on what's going on in that part of the world from a very accurate source, you definitely want to listen to his broadcast. If you can't make it, tune in to the YouTube video when it's up. There's at least a couple of them that are up right now, and you definitely want to hear what he has to say. And, of course, Graeme Sutherland is on. That's the show just before this one, Beyond the Matrix. All right, I want to remind everybody, send us money. We do need money. We don't. I have to be the head chief beggar here, so please, a few alms in our cup would be really nice to help us maintain our our growth and do all the wonderful things that we want to do in the future. So please, if you can, there's a PayPal address on our page under the button that says Support Us. And the PayPal address is basically stephenkelly714@gmail.com. But we really do appreciate any little bit that you can drop our way. It really does help out. And even if I don't get a chance to say thank you, I want to let you know I really do appreciate it. Also, if you can help us out on social media by sharing all the good stuff that we put out there with your friends, especially join the various pages that we put out. That very, very important. First thing you got to do is join the Truth Cat Facebook page. And then, of course, join all the other various pages for our hosts and various groups that we have. And help us share the information that we put out, because that will bring us more listeners and help us do our job. If you would like to be part of Truth Cat Radio in any way whatsoever, you can email me at law17gun@aol.com. That's LAW17GUN@AOL.com. Okay, law17gun@aol.com. Do not send any PayPal to that address. It won't work. And do not email the Stephen Kelly 714 address, because that's strictly for PayPal. What else? Let's see here. I think that's pretty much covers it. But again, I do want to thank every one of you out there that are listening. And if you are listening on a YouTube or something of this nature, please give us a nice thumbs up and a nice comment there. We appreciate all the nice comments. All right. Okay, so once again, this is Truth Cat Radio at www.truthcatradio.com, and you are listening to Delete the Beast with Richard Kary, and that's all you're going to hear from me for about an hour. Okay?
Actually, Beyond the Matrix, not Delete the Beast.
Well, that's what you're here for, to keep me. Come on, I can't do everything right all the time. Jeez.
Right. But no, please check out both shows. Delete the Beast at 6 Eastern and Beyond the Matrix at 8 Eastern. And then, of course, yes, Stephen D. Kelly is coming up right after my show in 1 hour. No worries, Stephen. You always have a pretty hefty workload there. Okay, I guess he already took off for the moment. But welcome back, everyone. And yes, as I said, this is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. And as I said, we are having a bit of an addition to our listenership starting tonight. We have started a simulcast. So we're added onto Wolf Spirit Radio with our listenership out there now. And so I would like to welcome all of you listeners and thank you for checking out my show. And please, of course, stick around for the Stephen D. Kelly show. Now, I know that
I'm muted.
I was. Oh yeah, I know you are. Oh, but I.
You're waiting for me to talk. Here I'm muted, listening to the delayed. Come on, man.
Oh no. I'm
Okay. Back to work. You got all those Wolf Spirit people saying, "What's up with this guy? Who's he talking to?" All right. I'm going back on mute now.
All right, go ahead. All right, bye. All right, everyone. But yes, welcome back. And I do want to mention that I do have a few interesting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. I usually try to focus on a guest and topic. I know the last handful of weeks I've had quite a few shows I've covered myself. There have been a lot of important topics. Honestly, a couple of those I really did want to just discuss some of these issues, and I wasn't even looking for a guest. And then a couple of other weeks, doing a little bit of email tag, if you, as it were, with some guests we have coming up. But I'm very excited about this coming Thursday. I did want to take a break in the show just to mention. Going to have a very interesting guest joining the discussion, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of his name here for you guys, but well, here goes. Ruben Caleb. There, maybe it didn't sound too bad. Yeah, and he's a brilliant speaker, and he's going to be discussing just a lot of the proposed nationalist movements, talking about just different suggestions that have been made in light of all of the immigration that has been going on and disabling a lot of these countries at points in certain cities lately. The point in Europe that we're at now is become quite a concern where this is very topical. And so he has a lot of interesting insight into, views on nationalism and various approaches to immigration issue, the nationalist and ethnic concerns, ethno-state sort of issues in this multicultural immigration crises that we're under, and all of the propaganda shaming, European nations for trying to survive. And I think it's really going to be interesting since, as I said, this man has been doing, a lot of public speaking, and it's going to be interesting to hear the perspectives and just also some of the insights he's gained and contrasted with, really, from people he's debated with. And that as I said, is going to be coming up next week. The following week after that, This gentleman is an author, and his name is Mark Downey, and is going to be describing his book, When Slave Becomes Master. And he's going to be talking about a lot of the experiences which led up to writing it, and a lot of the philosophies and really perspectives on reality that he's gained in the process. It's got a lot of very very prolific sort of things to say. Basically, it touches on the metaphysical even, and a lot of things that we may have trouble coming to terms with. But it should be a very, very enlightening, I think, interview, describing his life's processes and of course the writing of this book. And then of course the following week after that is going to be a gentleman who's been on Beyond the Matrix in the past. Alex Newman, I believe, is planning to be on the show again, and he's going to be discussing just the educational system, which he's quite an authority on. And in the era with all this Common Core and propagandizing of just the young people to such a degree. I mean, the far left has just really been doing a number on state-influenced children these days, and it seems like, it just keeps pushing harder and harder. We've had a lot of that in America now that has been mirroring what I've seen in Northern Europe, actually, because I was keeping up through a number of sources, including this one gentleman's station and show, a lot of the topics and information, people really coming out of Northern Europe, especially Sweden, but a lot of these countries. And for quite a few years, it has been a bit of a Brave New World kind of a vibe, for about a couple decades at least. In Northern Europe, places like Denmark and Sweden have been just very much hotbeds for this sort of conditioning of society, just experimentation labs, testing grounds, I like to describe it as. And I've been hearing a lot of the extreme sort of policies, sort of judgments, both in lawmaking and in school systems, and just policies for the culture that really go against a lot of what we're brought up to know as natural. And a lot of these do have to do with the programming of the children. I mean, I brought up the gender issue for one. I mean, that's taken quite a bit to an extreme in Sweden, has been for quite a while now. And I was really surprised, really. And it's only been the last couple of years I've been hearing stories like this in America now as well. Quite a few years prior to that, I heard a lot of this coming out of places like Sweden, but not so much over here. And it seems like it is starting to spread more and more into this country. Just the amount of influence in the schools, just to be general about it, over topics that really is no business of the school. And it's nothing like what education was focusing on back when it stuck to the the fundamentals. I mean, we used to have classes like automotive shop, not myself, but I mean, previous generations would learn a lot of practical skills that they would apply in life and maybe save some money out to went out to the corporations a little in the proceeds down the line. That's all gone out the window now. Now it's all about classes on art history and being a social justice warrior or social worker. And go focus on a bunch of rhetoric that teaches you to be a far left bureaucrat with no actual skills to maintain society. That's the focus of the modern school, because, well, bureaucracy's bloated inflation is really what helps keep the power junkies in power, the money junkies with their money. I mean, it keeps the system in lockup, basically, and locked down. And I mean, we see this in every aspect. I mean, just look at the tax code for one. I mean, the complexity of it is designed to benefit the corporations, make it harder for the little guy, be it a wage earner or a small business owner. And, well, I mean, just all of the regulations are all geared on that. So, I mean, we have the attack of the individual, their identity, shame toward nationhood, confusion of gender, and breaking down of the family unit, which ultimately will leave the child, the sole custody of the state. And just the more the actual family unit and all the actual tangible skills and functions, related to a household breakdown, then the individual, of course, is much easier to control, does not have any of their energy or wealth, possessions merged with anyone else as a team, but, is completely, stripped down to the individual. And that of course, makes anyone more manipulable and easier to keep, in poverty and without control. This is globalism, though. I mean, people are on a national level pushing away from it. As far as the evidence I've been talking about regarding the EU in the first hour, and how, these nations are ultimately realizing that, this is not in the best interest of the people. And so I think ultimately a lot of these other factors will trickle down. And, I'm very optimistic that people are going to, in the long run, overcome the manipulation of the educational system, the justice system, the political systems. But the educational system really is where we need to focus fundamentally, first and foremost, I think, because that's where that's where we're the most vulnerable. I mean, people go to an educational environment with a trusting, open mind, right? And that's that's not a very good state to be in, if you're in the presence of those who would manipulate you and exploit you, only to parasite off you ultimately. So we really have to just be a lot more aware of the subtleties involved in a lot of what we're brought up and educated with. I don't want to go too all over the place here, but I did want to get back a little to what I was, the other topic I was mentioning in the first hour, just to sum up, just the amount of rhetoric that we have been hearing lately from the corporate media regarding both the politics of fighting Trump as a policy, to the Russia bashing, to the twisting of the evidence, really, regarding all of this accusatory. Well, I mean, we have more than just accusations from Trump, but I mean, the Democratic side doesn't have any sort of evidence. And they have a lot of, these hardcore Republican establishment warmongers, though, who are on their side as well, siding against Trump with a lot of these issues. I know even Trey Gowdy, in his position on the Intelligence Committee, said they were going to look into the wiretap. And Gowdy, he was slamming the corporate media for trying to rush judgment, saying there's nothing there and it's nonsense. Gowdy saying we can't cross-examine anonymous sources. He's even admitting, we can't even directly examine the anonymous sources. It's very easy to write a news piece compared to conducting an investigation. We have all these exact accusations. We just know that Russia had to be behind this and that. And there's just this gut feeling, and so that should be enough justification. These are the kind of things that the people are actually resorting to. I don't know. It's really ridiculous. I mean, last week, the findings from any investigation into Russia interfering in anything whatsoever had been nil, zero, zilch. It was a complete embarrassment. And now they have, that just totally destroyed the corporate media's narrative, as well as a lot of the the Trump bashing that the Democratic Party has been focusing on using Russia for. And so they're kind of just, trying to figure out what their next move is going to be at this point, basically. But, well, we did have a very interesting revelation regarding the Federal Reserve. I'm not very hopeful that too much would necessarily come of this. The House panel, all right, has passed a bill to audit the Federal Reserve. So the House of Representatives panel passed this bill to audit the Federal Reserve. Now, do I think that much change is going to happen? Much is really going to come of this? No. But it is nice that we actually are seeing actions being taken at this level, because it just does publicize and get it out there to everyone to remind you, hey, we need to look into this system. Of course, not nearly enough people are even aware, perhaps, that the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's a private organization. That's, we're going to for permission as a country to have money, and they're charging us. They're treating it as a loan at interest to print this money for us. But we're the nation. Why do we go to this private organization for that? But so many leaders in the past, that is what got them in trouble. It's what made a lot of people turn against Hitler. It's what made Kennedy a target and made him killed. Had him killed ultimately. Andrew Jackson, he abolished the Second Federal Reserve. He had an attempt on his life. A Second Bank of the United States, that is, he had an attempt on his life that he thwarted. It's amazing. Actually, he had his cane that he actually knocked the pistol out of the person's hand with. Is what the story I had read told. It's just really quite amazing. But Andrew Jackson has to be my nominee for greatest president. To abolish the Federal Reserve and, survive an assassination attempt. And he has that great, crazy white hair, if they take him off the $20 bill, that's it. I would be disgusted. He needs to stay on that. That guy is great. You really can't criticize Andrew Jackson. It's probably, would have to be the best president. Oh, it looks like I have a if you give me a moment here, folks. I have a little message I wanted to respond to, but yeah, I mean the Federal Reserve has been an institution for so long, and in so many of these countries, it's really just hard to believe much could be accomplished. But maybe in the long run, these things could lead to something. These are small steps, initial steps of questioning these things and attempting to do something about it. I would say that it probably will hit a brick wall. I mean, this time around, but in the long run, yeah, I think that maybe it can be the start of progress at the very least. I'm just sending a little message to a co-host here, folks. Pardon me. But I did at least like that that sort of concept, auditing the Federal Reserve is being attempted and is being implanted into the minds of people, because it is something that really ultimately should happen, for all of these nation states, is to not be slaves, which is what keeps us all in poverty. I mean, I don't really believe we have true capitalism ever because of these private central banks. If we didn't have those, people don't really understand how much detriment it does to a nation ever being able to grow or prosper, their wealth, their prosperity. When you have currency that is a loan at interest to a private central bank, they don't understand. If they look in history at the times when a country did away with that and how much things changed, that can shed some insight, if each of you do a bit of research into that, because yeah, it really is telling, on just why, we've never really had capitalist systems most of the time in most of these countries. When they're attempting capitalism, it's pseudo-capitalism, because we're not able to see what actually happens when everyone is using a capitalist system and we see how things can grow. Yeah, folks, I was just going to try to bring a special guest in here if possible. You just give me a moment on the technical side. Hello. I think we're not quite connected yet. Just trying to connect here, folks. If you could just give me a moment. Hello?
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Graeme. Hey, I'm glad to talk to you. How have you been?
Yeah, great. How are you getting on?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Yeah. So I see you're still up kind of late tonight. Yeah.
You know this, I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, which is extremely unusual for me, and I worked really hard. Got a good day's grafting, good day's work. But for some reason, I'm just not tired. I don't know what's going on.
For those of you out there who might not recognize his voice, this is Graeme Sutherland, the host of Delete the Beast, which is the show on just before mine. And yeah, Graeme, yeah, I've been curious. I heard about, on the news the other day, I heard that there was some find off the coast of Scotland. They found a lot of oil where they're supposed to I don't know, to potentially be a lot, wealthier due to this. It's supposed to be quite a large deposit of oil off the Scottish coast somewhere. Did you hear anything about this?
Yes, I did. I watched a documentary about it just 2 nights ago. They have found a massive field. They reckon it's 30 to 40 kilometers in length, and well, it's going to be major. It's in I think it's west of Shetland.
Okay. And yeah, no, it sounds like a pretty large amount. I forget the amount of barrels they said, but it sounds like, I mean, it'd be a lot, definitely a lot more wealth, make Scotland a lot more prosperous. And now well, I mean, they're talking about a second referendum toward independence, but I don't know, some politicians are trying to suggest for them to go with the EU if that happens, which sounds ridiculous. That there goes the wealth. Obviously the EU is probably eyeing this oil already, wouldn't you say?
I think Nicola Sturgeon has been a disaster for Scottish politics. Basically, she's split the party because, well, basically, what she's suggesting is that we trade Westminster for Brussels. In other words, yes to independence from Westminster, but yes to dependence to Brussels. It seems like a complete paradox.
Right. Yeah. That seems like it completely defeats the purpose. Only someone who doesn't understand anything would think that could be like a move you should actually make, right?
Yeah, well, I was a vehement supporter of, and I always have been, an obsessive supporter of Scottish independence. Since ever I could think, from way back. But this, and I mean, I voted yes at the last referendum. But this whole concept of divorcing ourselves from Westminster only to get married to Brussels, it just seems like absolute lunacy.
Yeah, I mean, basically with the EU, any nation that has any kind of wealth, it gets sucked away from them, and just to keep everyone equally at an equally impoverished level, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The EU is an absolute disaster of biblical proportions. It's just an absolute outrageous, top-heavy, complete waste of time. It has just not worked. It's only worked for one country, and that's Germany.
And but even Germany is like starting to worry that if too many other nations around it were leaving, that too much of the burden for them to even out the wealth with the poorer countries, it would be left to them, right? So that they could even start to feel uncomfortable if too many nations leave. It'd just be a domino effect, it seems. Well, that's a good thing, though, right? I mean, we'd like to see it all crumble. Some people think it'll eventually happen. I don't know. Are you optimistic that the EU will end?
I honestly think that France will be the next to leave, and then possibly Italy, because, I mean, it's already showing signs. Just the fact that we've announced officially that we're definitely going to Brexit, it's stimulated business. There's all sorts of positives coming out of it already in this early stages.
Okay. Wow. Well, yeah, that's definitely inspiring then to other countries as well.
It's a beautiful thing. What a lot of people don't realize is they have got so much rules and regulations, like for small business and stuff. They actually paralyze small business. It's almost like they don't want people to be self-employed. You wouldn't believe the nonsense that's come in with the EU. Just like completely unnecessary bullshit, basically.
And I mean, aren't they also in favor of all the GMOs as well?
Yes, yes, they are,
Hmm.
and that's really worrying. Well, I mean, it's New World Order, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, like they're pro-vaccines probably, and all the pharmaceutical industries evil, basically. I was talking earlier tonight to the listeners about just how I think a lot of the schools are trying to condition the young people to think globalism is a evil thing, and therefore and nationalism is evil. I mean, the nations of Europe, at least, are ashamed to care about preserving their nation, to complain at all about the immigration or just the infrastructure and the native populations just kind of losing identity. But I mean, really, that's really part of globalism, right? I mean, to demonize nationalism. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much of that is. You see it in Scotland there. I mean, do you think that there's a lot of propaganda, in the schools with the young people toward that they should love and embrace globalism and all of this sort of thing, rather than embracing, their nationhood, their nationalism.
Yeah, for sure, but it's done in quite a subtle way. It's done in a way that we're encouraged to embrace foreigners, and if you don't embrace foreigners, you are a racist. That's how it's presented.
Yeah, so they make it sound like it's just hateful. Um, yeah, but I mean, yeah, they don't realize just how extreme, you know, things can get. I mean, with uncontrolled immigration, and a lot of people point out, of course, with the immigration, I mean, they're not getting the best and brightest people from these countries. Those people usually stay in those countries because things are going well for them. It's usually the people who couldn't make it in the country, the criminals, uneducated, low intellect, be people with yeah, just a lot of the undesirables, really. I mean, I know that a lot of countries, when they heard relaxed immigration in America, through Obama's policies, were getting more and more lax. A lot of the countries south of us, in the Americas, were trying to get all of their criminals sent. Basically, hey, you can leave the prison here if you go up to America there, basically. so it was a good deal for these smaller nations who are exploiting a lot of this immigration, really.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so bad when, well, in the past, when people made a decision to immigrate, they already accepted the fact that they would have to learn English, they would have to sort of, just integrate, dress like a British person, live in a British community, and just get on with life. But this refugee thing, it's basically people are, they don't really have a choice. Not them all, but most of them don't have anything to go back to. So they're coming to the West under duress. They don't, not them all. I mean, I know that there's all different stories and there's all different situations, but generally speaking, a large amount of them don't actually really want to be here. They're angry. They're angry because we have bombed their country back to the Stone Age. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with angry people that don't want to be here.
I've also heard a lot of them are being promised to be given a lot more things and benefits and jobs, opportunities, like to start themselves out when they get to the European countries, and then they're getting upset when they don't get as many things as were promised to them as well. So, and then we're hearing about a lot of people, complaining, that Europe's not more like their home country, and that they should have more of the symbols of their, religion or their, culture, or they're, offended by some of the native practices, and the politicians, the liberal politicians, are bowing down to a lot of these, shaming kind of the native cultures, and you've heard a lot of these stories of this kind of thing, right?
Hey, yeah, some of them are quite funny.
Yeah.
There was one that I heard, and there was a bunch of Syrian refugees put into this Alpine lodge in Sweden. It was a beautiful big, it was like a small hotel, but it was made of logs, and it was in this beautiful Swedish valley. And they had complained, the refugees had complained because there was too many trees.
Oh yeah, they're not used to too many trees in a lot of those countries, right?
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. They're in this alpine situation in a beautiful, a beautiful location, and they're complaining because there's too many trees. I thought it was fantastic.
They're not used to all that oxygen to the brain, They're
Well, trees are pretty un-Islamic, you see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I hear a lot of contrasting views on that. I mean, some people are very anti-Islam. I know you have a lot of sentiments I'm wary of how a lot of people of that culture can be taught, to be very aggressive to others, but then a lot of other people have pointed out that that a lot of the agendas in the Middle East really start with Israel, and that Israel will in some ways demonize Arabic people in different parts of the world to suit their agendas, and so people don't sympathize their enemies of all the countries we invade. So, I mean, I hear conflicting views, and I understand that some truths to both sides of it, but I don't know. What would you say about all of that ultimately?
I think, I know, personally, I know some people who are, practicing Muslims, and it's kind of weird because they don't. They don't really speak about it much. It's not like, for instance, there was a guy, when I stayed in Edinburgh for a couple of years, and there was a guy who, he did body work in cars, he did resprays and all this kind of stuff. And he was a fully blown Asian guy with a big black beard and all the rest of it. And he had a Polish guy working for him, and he had a Romanian guy working for him. So they were all foreign, but they're really nice. I went and asked for a price to do some body work on my car, and I was quite well. He gave me a really good price, but I was also impressed with the work. It was actually a Polish guy that did work on the car. But I went back 2 or 3 times with different vehicles, and they did some body work in this different vehicles. Because I kind of like buy and sell cars a bit. Anyway, I got speaking to him one time, and he'd really moderate. He'd really kind of moderate. I didn't even know he was a Muslim. It never even cropped up. I'd spoken to him loads of times. Okay. And he'd really kind of moderate views about everything, He was kind of like really easy going. But then he was here because, he came here, he had some family here. He came here to resettle. He wanted to live in Scotland. And he started a business, and the business was, quite successful. But this new rush of people that's coming in, this refugees, it's a completely different set of circumstances. These people are angry, and that's what people can't quite, they can't quite understand. They can't quite get their head around the fact that these people are angry, that we have radicalized them. We have done this. We are responsible. for their extremism. We're directly responsible. If you look at some pictures or video footage of Iran or Iraq or any of these countries from the late 70s, they just looked like us. The woman didn't wear stupid, head to toe coverings. There was none of that. They just wore short skirts and just went down and sunbathed on the beach with bikinis, the same as we do. It's us. It's us that's every action's got an opposite and equal reaction, and we have radicalized them.
Yeah, and I think there's. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a lot of people forget about that fact. They just focus on the religion, or the focus on the terrorism or whatever, and they forget about the fact that we have basically flushed them out of their homes, and they've came here under duress.
And a lot. It also, I think, touches on a sensitive issue, especially for a lot of the liberal politicians. The culture clash that you get in a lot of these places is real. I mean, you maybe you don't notice it as much until you have like a large influx at once. Like we're seeing with all this immigration lately in Europe and America. But I mean, the belief that you change the surroundings and you'll change the person, is what all these liberals believe. I know this one gentleman who does a news show. He points out very often that all comes really the liberals' attitude toward that. They cite this one book this woman wrote. The book was called "Coming of Age in Samoa," Samoa, Samoa, and Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead was the woman's name, and it turned out to be it was like a study of some people isolated on an island and this sort of thing, and it turned out to be a hoax, the scientific data behind it, basically. But it's still used by the liberals to support their idea that, that DNA and genetics don't matter, that there's no difference between any races of people. It's just their surroundings, and that, that they're going to act like whatever country you put them in automatically, and those people, and they'll get along with them, and there won't be any crime, and there won't be any resentment, and there won't be any rape. But that's not what happens, And I mean, a lot of the liberals want to deny, I think, these realities because they like to mix races together so it's easier to control everyone, So they say racism's a bad thing and that we're all equal, but we do have these ethnic and genetic differences, and it's not a
well, yeah, that's right. But before we all had cars and stuff, people didn't obviously travel so far, and they would probably just marry. They would marry and have a family with someone that lived in the next kind of glen, or the next village. That would be about as far as it would go, and we've got it it's kind of in our DNA to kind of stick to our kind, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's absolutely fine. And in history, a lot of the time when foreigners came to our land, it was usually to invade us or whatever, like the Vikings or or whatever. There were usually marauding tribes would come and try and kill you and stuff like that. So we were always suspicious of strangers, especially from overseas, arriving in big boats and stuff.
Right.
And I think that's built into us. We're really cagey because we know that people from other countries and other societies and everything have got a completely different value and moral structure from us. And, good luck to them. If that's how they want to live back home, good luck to them. That's great. Whatever makes them happy. come and impose, their belief systems and their value systems in a foreign country. That whole concept is ludicrous.
Yeah, I like I heard there were like complaints in some of the areas of some immigrant filled regions of some of the European countries they migrated to. They were complaining about a lot of the local customs interfering with their with their worship. I mean, I know like the prayer time, for example, and I think like the clock tower ringing or something was interfering with that, or I forget what so some sort of very iconic ritual to the European country was being stopped, to please these people and their culture from another land, for example. But no, I mean, yeah, just on a larger scale of just the whole culture. I mean, like we have all these rapes, like I know in Sweden it's been ridiculous, and now like in Germany we hear about it more, and France. You get reports of this in Scotland as well. I mean, I know not the corporate media, but I mean, is there a bit of a rape epidemic even in parts of Scotland with the immigrants?
I wouldn't exactly describe it as an epidemic, but there
Right.
has been several incidences. However, there was quite recently two paedophile rings busted. They were all Asian. Every single one of them were Asian, and they were basically grooming. A lot of them own businesses, including, well, we call them off licenses. I think you call them liquor stores. So they're basically grooming young girls and giving them alcohol and, encouraging them to stay off school, sometimes giving them jobs, part-time jobs when they should be at school and this kind of thing, and encouraging them to get drunk. Anyway, this is what was happening, and there was 46 arrests in one paedophile ring. It had nothing to do with Satanism or whatever. They were just randy Muslims, basically. Now that's happened twice. Once it was in Manchester.
Wait. In all fairness, Graeme, I mean, we could say randy Arabs, right? Because I mean, if they are strict to the Muslim religion, they wouldn't behave like that, supposedly, right? So wait, randy Arab maybe is a better term.
Maybe randy Arabs is a better description. But they were all of the same ethnic group, and they were all well, some of them were second and third generation, immigrants. They weren't like they hadn't all just recently arrived. It's just that they've got a different culture, basically, than us. They don't really value females. They pretend they do, but they clearly don't. They clearly don't. So anyway, yeah, to answer your question, there has been two major paedophile rings of people of Arab descent, Middle Eastern descent, busted in the UK in the last year or so. One of them was quite extensive. There was like 90 people involved or something, and it was over quite a bit. It was over 2 or 3 counties. It was quite a big, and it had been going on for years. It was quite a big operation, and basically we're talking about a large grooming gang. Anyway, they got busted, and most of them are in jail now.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, I mean, and then, well, I don't know, like how many areas of, I know like maybe certain areas of a given, country has received the main influx of immigrants. It might not be equal in all parts. But I mean, like, yeah, are there specific areas of Scotland, maybe near certain large cities or something, where they've had? I mean, I'm sure you've had your share of immigrants as much as any. It seems most of the European countries haven't been able to escape taking a quota, basically, right?
Well, no, that's right. I know that there's an area in Glasgow. I was down there. What's this? March. Yeah, I was down there in September, October, and yeah, there's this whole area that's just full of immigrants, and for some reason they're mainly Iraqis and Moroccans and Algerians, and there's a lot of tower blocks in Glasgow, skyscrapers, and there was this one in particular. It was due for demolition. Tower blocks are not very popular here now. They've been blowing them up. They were a response to the housing crisis, the baby boomer housing crisis in the 60s and the 70s. You know, they built all these 20, 30 story high rises for people to live in. Anyway, they've been blowing them up recently. They say they're bad for they're just bad for people's people's lives. It's not a natural way to live. Anyway, they decided to instead of blowing these ones up, instead of demolishing them, they were going to refurbish them and give them to immigrants. So that's what they've done. So there's 2 or 3 of these tower blocks, in inner city Glasgow that is just completely filled. I don't mean 1 or 2 families. They are completely filled with immigrants, and they've all got like a committee and a liaison officer and all this kind of stuff that speaks various languages and everything, that deals with the local council and stuff. It's all quite bizarre, and the locals are like, whoa, they don't even go near the place. They kind of like, they avoid the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of accounts of that from European countries. Yeah, I think they call it like no-go zones, and even the police don't go anywhere near there. It's just too dangerous. No reporters, no police, no one enters. They just have complete control. Basically, have taken the land's sovereignty away from the nation state. These immigrants in these sectors, right?
Yeah, it's a social experiment in a sense, and we are kind of the guinea pigs, because they're not. They're not staying in. They've thrown them right into the middle of cities, and it's a kind of sink or swim thing. And a lot of these people, I mean, they're bound to feel insecure. They're suddenly in a strange country where everyone dresses kind of strange, and everyone speaks a foreign language, and a lot of these people don't have any skills. They don't have a skill set, so the only kind of work they can do really. It's kind of labouring work, and that's kind of about, what do they call it again? They call it 0 hours contracts. It's the latest thing here. It's quite disgusting. You can get hired one day and fired the next, basically. But by the same token, they can keep you on for years, but they don't owe you any benefits or holiday pay or anything. It's called 0 hours contracts. Have you heard about that?
Okay, no, not exactly, but I may have heard something reference to it. I didn't understand exactly what it was, but all right.
Yeah, well, it's basically you're basically hired on a daily basis. You don't have any of the perks or any of the benefits of someone that's through the books and, employed properly. And, you've got to go through a proper process if you're going to sack them. There's all this kind of stuff. But these 0 hours contracts, as they call them, you're basically just hired every day. But that can go on for years, that you're hired every day. But if you have a day off or you take a holiday, you don't get any money.
And so this is like a trend that's expanding to more and more of the jobs?
Well, yes, it is. And some of the big companies are doing 0-hour contracts as well because it's cheaper for them and it's safer for them. Because someone in 0 hours contracts, you can't even, if they have an accident at work, they can't even claim compensation.
Right, yeah.
They've got no rights, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it does seem to be a serious issue.
You about ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, Stephen. Well, Graeme, yeah, it's been great having you on today. I should try to make your appearance on your show next week, if that could work.
Aye, that would be cool, Richard. Aye, that'd be great. We'd glad to have you.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, thanks for.
You're gonna have to run that by me first, though. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'll have to think about it.
All right.
I don't know, Graeme. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I know, it's a lot to think about.
All right. Well, no.
Okay.
Thanks for sticking around and chatting tonight, Graeme. I think, it's been a lot of great topics.
Yeah, for sure. Time passed really quick.
Yeah, it did. All right. Well, thank you, and yeah, I'll talk to you this coming week then.
Yeah, okay, Richard. Nice one. Thanks for that.
All right. And thank you everyone else out there for listening tonight. This has been Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. Stick around for the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and we'll see you next week. Transcend the construct. Regards.